No, sweetie, we gotta go, man.
Mommy, I want to
You're gonna get 5 kisses and hugs.
Where's my bagel?
No, I need it for the car. I need it for the car, actually.
My bagel.
Your bagel is a good question. Maria, could you just get her bagel, which is right there? I'll get it.
I'm gonna put water for him.
Thank you. Where'd it go? Maria, what did you?
I'll find it.
No, I literally just had it. Okay, great. Okay. Thank you, sir.
How are you? Sorry, we're running a little late. That's why I forgot my phone. Good catch.
And the wrong way.
I'm pulling you still at 3:50.
They know it is good.
Yes, they do. I took my hands up already.
All right, well, thanks everybody, and thanks for bearing with you folks who've been making a documentary about our administration's diplomacy for a few months now.
Sir.
Albright was here the full time, and Kirkpatrick and Susan.
Syrian people, refugees, promoting global health, fighting climate change.
Yeah, put us back there, right?
Yes.
Good upstairs.
Hey, Doc. President. Thank you. Welcome. Good to see you.
I met President Obama when I ran for president
Mr. John Kerry.
and asked him if he would be willing to be the keynote speaker for my convention.
When we send our young men and women into harm's way, we have a solemn obligation not to fudge the numbers or shade the truth about why they're going, and to never, ever go to war without enough troops to win the war, secure the peace, and earn the respect of the world.
I was very much one of those people who got hit by lightning when he gave that speech. And I immediately made it my single-minded mission to work for this man.
People of the world, this is our moment. This is our time.
I was a professor at Harvard, and I got an email from this first-term senator. I went and I met him and started talking about the book I had done on American responses to genocide, talking about the state of the world, brainstorming about how it could be done differently. And I heard myself saying, why don't I leave my job and come and intern in your office?
But I'd like to just sketch a few examples of what Obama has done on foreign policy, what he's capable of, and what he will.
It felt very much like a pickup team. Samantha, she gets excited, and we're talking about these ideas, and I'm thinking, wow, this is great. We're gonna change the world.
Seeing President Obama not long after he was elected and seeing this dramatic shift in his demeanor was to be reminded of what these individuals take on.
Perhaps the most profound issue surrounding my receipt of this prize is the fact that I am the commander-in-chief of a nation in the midst of 2 wars.
We came in wanting to repair America's standing in the world.
We will show the courage to try and resolve our differences with other nations peacefully, not because we are naive about the dangers we face, but because engagement can more durably lift suspicion and fear.
Many of us who are still on the president's team today began with him before the administration. Each of us brings something to the table, informed by our history, by our experience, by our background.
The president knew what team he was building. He knew Samantha was going to be trying to hold his conscience accountable. He knew John Kerry was going to be an activist.
For the sake of our national security, we must give diplomacy a chance to succeed. I say this recognizing that diplomacy is hard, that it's rarely politically popular. Let us reach for the world that ought to be. Clear-eyed, we can understand that there will be war and still strive for peace. We can do that, for that is the story of human progress.
No, because I think they're going to come to the...
The first day I walked in to this building, the first thing I noticed and was struck by was how small it was. And you realize there's nobody else. You know, this is it. There's like 30 people who work here who are setting the direction for the entire U.S. government and in that way the entire world.
They agreed to sign an agreement with us which formalizes sharing of information about foreign terrorist fighters. Okay. And that's going to allow us to make real progress in the counter-ISIL fight.
Good. We'll try to build on that because part of what we need is better information sharing among the Europeans, not just between us and the Europeans.
Exactly.
And on the climate change side, in terms of bringing the Paris Agreement into force, I'm always feeling a sense of urgency to try to get as much done as possible because this office is a singular privilege. All good? Ready to go? You know, you have the ability to press levers and push buttons that are different from any other job you're ever going to have, and hopefully you've set a course and then you pass the baton, and you know that you're going to have to see some other folks continue that process.
The Obama administration has just one more year to make changes to U.S. policy in a way that it hopes the next U.S. president won't reverse.
Well, the president has said a lot of stuff happens in the fourth quarter.
During his final year in office, President Obama will spend much of his time traveling.
Okay, I am POTUS. I'm coming in. Oh my gosh, I see my friends. I recognize.
Can I introduce you to Khadija Najafi, Mr. President?
Yes, and then you have your natural reaction that I've told you to have 5 times.
Introduce to you Khadija Najafi.
So nice to meet you.
Are we seeing the creation of the president's foreign policy legacy?
Republicans are blaming Obama for foreign policy failures.
I feel like we should have, you know, a clock up with the days counting down, because what we have set in motion, whether Cuba normalization, climate change, Syria, you know, incredibly important issues of our national security, you know, all of that is at stake.
A lot of people are running to succeed President Obama. Republicans have the largest primary field ever.
17 candidates are now in the race.
Promised to undo much of his work on climate and foreign policy.
One of the things I want to do with the time remaining, you know, is to just try to convey that this is a different way of doing foreign policy. It's less militarized and it's more engagement focused, and the areas where we're actually making progress and achieving big results in foreign policy are areas where we've been able to re-elevate diplomacy. The Cuba opening, Paris Climate Accord, the Iran deal.
We're dealing with a country, Iran, that has been a sworn adversary of the United States for over 35 years.
This deal wouldn't have happened without John Kerry, his persistence.
This was the longest we've ever seen a Secretary of State outside the United States working on one project in decades.
Today marks the moment that the Iran nuclear agreement transitions from an ambitious set of promises on paper to measurable action in progress. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right.
I think undoing the potential of a nuclear weapon is about as serious a moment in diplomacy as you can get. I mean, yeah, you're happy when you get something like that done. It doesn't happen every day. But you're on to the next, you know, Syria, Yemen, Libya, North Korea, climate change. And we have about as full of an agenda as I think any administration has ever had. Everybody, thank you very much. Take care.
You did good on the reading deck. You were actually blasting through. If we had we didn't do our 5 pages, but we did. I think we made substantial progress.
I think you're trying to trick me about the donut. So
I'm not trying to trick you, honestly. I'm trying to come up with a compromise.
I think you are. Okay,
You think I'm gonna say I'm gonna get you a donut and not get you one?
Yeah.
You think I'm that kind of person? Damn. All right, all set.
What do you mean, damn?
I mean, no, I'm not the kind of person. Darn, how could you think that?
We can't find them.
I think the key is, when does the Secretary General arrive?
Right.
So I don't want to be late for him, but everybody else I can be a little bit late for. I have been struck initially as a journalist in Bosnia, and now certainly as a diplomat, at the extent to which discussions about what to do about problems seem completely removed from those problems.
This is Dina, the Jordanian ambassador. She's the one who's willing to brave her soul here today, so.
For me, it wasn't some conscious choice where I sat around with my team and said, you know, I'm going to do things differently. We are going to take ourselves out to the field as often as possible and sit down with the people who are affected most by conflicts. It was just instinct. It was how I used to report stories.
I'm okay without the umbrella. I'm okay. I'm okay.
Bearing witness is both an instinct and a responsibility. It is also the best way I know of convincing people, which is the essence of what I'm trying to achieve as a diplomat.
I've never been in here before. Hi. Hi, Gabo. Thank you so much. This is so beautiful. When did the UN get modern? Hi. Do you have like 15 minutes right now? You should go. No, not to talk to me. You should go into this booth. They take you. They'll put a pair of glasses on you, and they take you into the Zatri refugee camp.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow, it's very powerful. Whew. And then they hook you up to talk to a person in the camp. Wow, this is amazing. Hi, Helen. I'm well. Brings home the serious stakes.
Thank you.
It's just right there, and I'm going to try to go to the SG and get him to keep it because it's.
Yes.
If we're trying to raise money and get people to support these people in the camps and
Excellent.
Anyway,
Thank you.
but otherwise bad day because of what's going on in. It's unbelievable. They hit the Free Syrian Army.
Yes, they did.
Of course they did. Seriously, if you do nothing else I ever ask you to do, just do this thing. Really. Okay, it's really amazing. It's right there.
And one other thing they sent over, there is an op-ed about Iran that we're preventing business.
I know State can get a little hysterical, but I'm actually beginning to get a little hysterical. Because, like, at a certain point, the Iranians have, like, a fairly substantial body of evidence to say that they don't need to abide by the deal, So we may lose control of it today. But.
The last thing is that there's this massive dead cockroach, like, right under this chair.
There are nights sometimes when you hear the rats scurrying around in the ceiling, too.
Yeah.
What makes America great is who we are as a country and what we do around the world. My job defies like easy description, but I oversee the president's speech writing, our press, our public engagement. What is he doing and saying? What are we communicating about foreign policy? I mean, that's the core of my job. So I added this line. In Germany, of all places, we know that the last thing the world needs is more walls. I mean, I've been on every foreign trip except one, so, I tend to live trip to trip or speech to speech or, finding the priorities that he wants me to focus on.
Ben's one of the longest and closest advisors to the president. Ben, as few others do, have with the president a sort of mind meld. They are not only good friends, but they see many issues eye to eye, and that's very valued by the president, I know.
Having started in the campaign together and worked together for 4 years at the White House, you could just see he was creative, strategic, impassioned, irreverent, but stubborn. He doesn't care if everyone in the room, if the herd is going in a direction, he'll interrupt and say, "What are you people talking about?" Uh-oh.
We're actually doing some things that question certain underlying assumptions of the conduct of American foreign policy. He's been saying for 10 years that American exceptionalism is rooted in what we stand for and how we act, and not just in our ability to impose our will on people, in part because it doesn't work. So I think the main thing for them is drawing the arc of progress, like how far this place has come and how tied that is to the relationship with us. And our whole theory, not just of Vietnam, but frankly, of foreign policy, right, is that engagement is going to make it more possible for us to make progress on these issues.
This is why I really thought he ought to come to this part of the country, because it's just so, you know.
Well, and there are
a lot happening here.
Yeah. And then how many questions do you want to take?
I'll do whatever you want. I don't care.
No, take 2 and let us deal with this.
Two's good.
You don't want to subject yourself to too much.
All right.
Great.
That's good.
My sitting up here is really symbolic. I'm not here as John Kerry. I'm here as a small representation of a very much larger group of veterans in this country. Millions of men who have been taught to deal and to trade in violence, and who are given the chance to die for the biggest nothing in history.
I was a very angry guy who had seen a lot of carnage and loss of friends as a result of bad decisions being made. You know, I've been very blessed to be able to go through a progression of experiences which underscore the value of experience.
When I think about the trajectory of his career, from somebody who was fighting in the war to somebody who was protesting against the war to somebody who helped bring about reconciliation to now.
Nice to see you.
You know, this is a reflection of the work of decades. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
So nice to meet you.
She went to Stanford. I didn't get into Stanford.
You know, well, there are a lot of places you didn't get in. Me neither. You know, this is one of the favorite things that I do in just about every country where we have the time, is to set up one of these forums and just hear what's on the minds of young people around the world.
You are a very great leader, and we are young leaders. Do you have any advice that how can we be great like you?
Oh, wow. One of the things that I've learned about being a leader is sometimes we think people are motivated only by money, or they're only motivated by power, or these very concrete incentives. But people are also inspired by stories. You think about the United States of America. We have a really good story called the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. It was just a good story that they were telling about what could be. So it's worthwhile to listen to other people and ask them questions about the stories that are important to them. Good. All right. Let's see.
I'll be right there, Josh. I just have to do one thing. I remember walking home on 9/11. I was 23 years old. My life was planned out for me. You know, I was gonna live in New York and try to write novels. And I remember just thinking, I'm gonna do something different. I don't know what, but it's gonna be about this. It is Monday, and we're in Hanoi, and the speech is Friday. People sometimes think we write these things like weeks in advance, and given how busy we are, we don't. These are the remarks that the president will give in Hiroshima after he tours the Peace Memorial. One of the things you do when you write a speech often is you read the other speeches that people have given in that circumstance, and there's nothing that I could find that was similar to this. You know, it's a pretty unique thing. Because, I mean, other people have given speeches in Hiroshima, but they're not as the president of the country that dropped the bomb. And he may completely rewrite it, I don't know, because he'll have a very personal view of what to say.
And just, I mean, you don't have to answer this, but just how the last couple of weeks been for you, just personally?
Well, I'll answer it because what the hell, this hasn't come out for a while. I mean, they were pretty awful.
Ben Rhodes.
Ben Rhodes.
Ben Rhodes. One of the president's top aides.
An article from the New York Times Magazine has stirred days of controversy.
A 10,000-word profile of Ben Rhodes.
I'd actually never done a profile like that of myself, but yeah, New York Times Magazine seemed like, you know, fine, I'll do this one. And we talked about everything from Cuba to Burma to Iran to speech writing. So I actually didn't know exactly what the angle of the article was.
Rhodes ripped the Washington press corps, called the American foreign policy establishment the blob, and bragged about the echo chamber he orchestrated to sell the Iran nuclear deal.
You know, when I read it, I immediately felt, well, that Iran section's a little weird. And frankly, that was the author's view, not mine. And frankly, it's his view. He's entitled to it. I don't agree with it.
New York Times Magazine used quotes from Rhodes himself to portray him as having sold the Iran nuclear deal.
Most of the reporters were on average 27-year-olds and knew, as he put it, literally nothing about world affairs.
What he clearly views as a stupid, compliant, lazy press corps.
They literally know
nothing.
I don't want to take, bits of quotes that were pulled out of different places. Those of you who have worked with me know how much I respect the media.
Did you not, when you say they know nothing?
Look, again, I'm not gonna parse quotes. I think I have a body of experience, and you can make your judgments based on that body of experience.
Thank you.
Sometimes I felt like the personal attacks on me were a way of avoiding the actual questions that were being raised. Because it's easier to just attack me for being an asshole than to think about, well, why do we keep getting into wars in the Middle East? But what I hope, and I actually was talking to the president about this, is somehow we can use the rest of this year to keep surfacing these questions. It's about war and peace that he's been wrestling with for the last 7.5 years. And just going to Hiroshima, that's going to surface some of these questions.
The Hiroshima speech really wasn't connected to a particular policy, but told a story. From my perspective, it was a story about the inevitable tragedy of war. 71 years ago, on a bright, cloudless morning, death fell from the sky and the world was changed. A flash of light and a wall of fire destroyed a city. Mere words cannot give voice to such suffering. But we have a shared responsibility to look directly into the eye of history and ask what we must do differently to curb such suffering again. We must change our mindset about war itself to prevent conflict through diplomacy. Ordinary people understand this, I think. They do not want more war. I had a chance to say hello to that gentleman who had survived the war, who had taken the time to find families of American POWs who had also died, insisted that their names be enshrined, that they were recognized, and to see how much a moment like this meant to him. It's ultimately where politics, government, diplomacy has to be rooted in that moment, in that belief in a common humanity. Without being naive, understanding that the world is a dangerous and difficult place, without being so idealistic that you don't protect and preserve America's core interests. But wherever we can make those kinds of connections, I think in some small increment, we're making the world a little bit better.
What is missing from this memo is, under atrocity prevention, where does Boko Haram fall on this? If it's not part of this document, then why would we spend 10 days traveling to 4 countries? We have to know what we and I am seeking to achieve in 2016. And without that, we can't make the kinds of choices that we need to make given the time we have left. We're all just passing through these jobs, and I think I feel the urgency of these, incredibly challenging conflicts. We can't leave that hanging. We've got to make sure we have re-engaged in a way that really acutely advances U.S. national interests, so that it'll be harder to dismantle in the event that we take a different turn.
Copy direct, thanks.
Hi, sweetie, it's me calling. Just been trying to reach you during the day because we haven't chatted. So I'm about to take off tonight, and I wanted to try to talk to you before I go. Love you, take care. Hi to everybody. Bye-bye. We're on a tight schedule there, too. Guys, we'll have to
Pretty much all day.
really move fast. The clock is ticking because I would like to put a few things in a better place before we finish. And Syria is clearly one of them, but it's very, very difficult.
Largest ever diplomatic push for peace in Syria is underway this morning in Vienna.
Top diplomats from over 20 countries and representatives from several international bodies.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry is hopeful about delivering a breakthrough.
I think I'm an optimist by nature. I will never stop trying to stop people from waging a war if I think that there's a chance of finding a way forward. Our job is to try to find a way to negotiating table and to a political solution.
We're the State Department, we're not the Pentagon, so our big resource is not things like F-16s. What we have is the time and energy of our senior diplomats. And we have a secretary who, while 72 years old, has got a boundless amount of energy. And so we got 30 hours of meetings over the 2 days. Quite busy, but when you're half the age of your boss, you can't very well complain too much about wanting to get more sleep.
If somebody could put that call in, I'd appreciate it. I'd love to be able to go into the opera. We don't have much time, unfortunately, in a normal life.
Can I take a selfie? Selfie. Thank you very much.
This is a major diplomatic challenge. And I'm grateful to the president for trusting me and empowering me and giving me a pretty long leash and letting me go out there and take risks and trying to fight for things that some people think are impossible.
John Kerry and Barack Obama have sold out the Syrian people.
250,000 dead, millions of refugees.
The direction that Syria is going, it's becoming a failed state that ultimately is going to threaten our very security.
My mood all the time on Syria is pained and fraught by the complexity of the challenge. But we have an opening. I'm not overly optimistic, but I think any opening that can end the suffering potentially and create the space for a political settlement is one we are obliged to explore.
Russia would benefit from there being a political resolution inside of Syria that can end the violence. At the same time, Russia wants, it says, to go after Al-Qaeda and ISIL.
Syria's tough because there are a lot of competing interests. What we're trying to do is get the Russians to get aligned better. And after as much suspicion and as much doubt, given Ukraine, Crimea, and other things, is not easy either.
A thief can steal property, but that does not confer the right of ownership. What Russia has done is wrong as a matter of law, wrong as a matter of history. At the same time that I was blasting the Russian Federation for lopping off part of a neighbor, using bunker buster bombs in Syria, often I'm also working with Russia. In the EU session, Russia just blasted her. I was like, you gotta fight back. Come on, take it to them. They bully, and if they just are allowed to bully, they just bully more. I'm in awe of the refugees who've traveled so far. Anyone who wants to share, I and my team would be very grateful to hear it.
Me and my friends who have families in Syria, they are thinking, and you can't help them. Sorry.
It is heart-wrenching. I wake up in the night thinking about it, I go to bed thinking about it. You know, it is the most catastrophic humanitarian situation of our time. So working with Secretary Kerry, that is atop the priority list. It's also atop the degree of difficulty list. So we have our work cut out for us and a short period of time left to work with.
To the establishment in Washington, foreign policy is basically like the Middle East and Russia, and then maybe how those two things enter Europe. And those are all very important, but you know, American foreign policy, if we are going to remain the global leader, has to be global.
After the re-election, we looked at the world and decided where we wanted to do things affirmatively. The thing I asked to do was Cuba. But on Cuba, I was the principal negotiator. And we actually got a lot farther than I ever imagined. You know, we just look at the American and Cuban flags next to each other and become overcome with emotion. And it was about the U.S. and Cuba, but it was about something bigger than that, too. I mean, it was about if these two countries can try to put the past behind them, maybe we all can do that, you know.
Hey, how you doing?
So we have a whole team that's visiting different places the president might go while he's here. Because we see it as an historic visit, the first time the U.S. president's going to visit Laos. And also, it will frankly just help Americans confront that part of our history, which is not a good part of our history.
Obama was stepped down. Will you continue with the new president or no? That's
I don't think so. I know Hillary Clinton and her team very well. I could do something for Hillary Clinton just as
So you're saying Hillary Clinton will be selected?
I think she'll.
Not
be
Donald Trump.
Yes.
No, I don't. No. Surely?
I'm sure.
I mean, what happened in England? It's sort of.
Yeah, no, that shows you that anything can happen.
The foreign minister asked me about it, asked me about Trump, and to be asked, by a foreign minister and then a young exchange participant, just shows you how much it's permeated. It's already having a cost. I mean, it's already just the rhetoric and the divisiveness and the profile of the campaign is clearly making people around the world think, what's going on in America?
My two kids are 6 and 3 years old. And one woman who is becoming a citizen with you today has helped me raise them. Maria and I are not related by blood, but we are family. And it's very humbling for me to get to be a part of this. As I rode here this morning, I remembered when I was sitting as you are now. It was 36 years ago when I came to this country. I was 9 years old. I emigrated to the United States from my native Ireland. One of the characteristics that defines us as immigrants in this country is we never lose sight of the fact that we might not have made it to America. Were it not, it's very moving. My son warned me I was going to cry. Were it not for the remarkable bravery of my mother and my dad, and the tremendous generosity of this country, I would not be here, and I wouldn't get to do so many of the things I get to do. I wouldn't get to be the person I am. And serving as I do every day at the United Nations, it's surreal. As an immigrant, I get to go to work every day and there's a placard that says United States of America, and I, an immigrant, get to represent this country, right? None of you lose sight of that. The ability to shape America is now your right, and we are counting on you to exercise it. We welcome you with open arms. Thank you so much.
The president just had his bilateral meeting with President Xi of China. Frankly, every bilateral meeting in a summit room, I've been to hundreds of them. It looks basically like this, a hotel conference room, a table. So they just finished meeting here about 15 minutes ago. And the president sits right here, and there's his tea. You're sitting here and you're realizing the scope of what has been done for 8 years just in this one relationship, the stakes in the relationship. I mean, the whole world kind of depends on the U.S. and China being able to figure out how to work things out and get along. And look, I've gotten in trouble for talking about this, but we're in a meeting with the leader of China and the United States talking about the global economy and climate and the transition to a green economy and the South China Sea, and none of these things are being discussed in the United States. They're talking about Donald Trump's Twitter feed.
That big one, right? Now, they have a lot of animals in Chad. Now, show me Nigeria.
No, I know what Nigeria is.
You show me Nigeria?
There.
There's Nigeria. Good job, Deck. Can I tell you about Nigeria?
Yeah.
So there were all these girls, and they were working really hard in school, just like Declan's been doing. They were learning to read, and they were amazing, amazing girls. And these really bad people came and took them away.
Are they fighting right now?
They're fighting right now, but Mommy's going in order to bring them more money.
What did you say? What, are they crying?
They're probably, a lot of people are crying, unfortunately. This is a Boko Haram-centered trip. We really want to bring more international attention to what this monstrous movement is doing. It is amazing that a group of kids who are just trying to study and improve their lives could get taken, and that 2 years later, we'd not have made a dent in finding them. So to bring media, to bring a full U.S. government delegation from across the sectors, it's with all the suffering that's going on right now in the world and all the terror, it's a horrible time to be a victim. Is this our entrance? Jesus.
We shall always fight for girls. All we are saying is bring back our girls now and alive. Can we please take our seats?
We'll make it fast. No problem at all. No, this is the most important part of my day.
As I stand before you, Madam Ambassador, Aisha Ezekiel is now your daughter. You have to remember that your daughter has been in captivity for 738 days, and they're waiting to be brought back home. As long as Chibok girls are in captivity, we all are in captivity. Humanity is in captivity. We do not have any moral justification as parents to tell our children to go to school when we cannot protect them.
As a parent, as a human being, I can't even imagine the frustration that you feel. And I'm sure having a senior U.S. official come here only exacerbates that frustration, because you think we're the superpower. If we really wanted this, we could just snap our fingers and make it happen. And I wish that were so, but we have to bring back these girls by pursuing military force and by respecting human rights on the ground so that more terrorists aren't created.
We are bringing more resources to bear every day. What I can tell you, as a personal representative of President Obama, is that we will never give up, just as you will never give up. We will never give up.
One of my most frustrating things is we were in Paris for the Paris talks shortly after the terrorist attack. In our press, it's complicated climate change issues, but some of them dig into it. But the kind of cheap headline political press just kept asking me, what's a bigger threat, ISIL or climate change? And the thing is, they know we think climate change is a bigger threat, right? But they want us to say that so that there's then they can debate on cable news, like Obama thinks climate change is bigger threat than terrorism, he doesn't get it, and it's one thing could destroy the world, I said, well, they're both threats, we take them both seriously, but just the fact that it's still viewed as a political vulnerability.
You can see everything from space, from satellites, but we need instruments in the water that can actually transmit real time.
Is anybody doing that at this point?
It's not something you can do in one country. It's something we need to collaborate.
We need to collaborate. Well, we need to collaborate.
I think it's manageable to do it.
This is seeing firsthand things I've read about, and I think it'll make me a more urgent advocate and hopefully a better advocate. You're multitasking. No other issue. Libya doesn't stop, or Yemen or Syria or whatever. I just had a conversation on the bridge of this ship with our team that's working on the issue of a cessation of hostilities on Syria. My job is to keep fighting and keep working. And if I wasn't an optimist, I wouldn't be able to do this job.
What is it that makes you believe that the Russians are your partners in trying to get a ceasefire and a political resolution when they're actually Assad's partner, certainly in trying to regain...
What is Putin's game here? To outflank the Obama administration in Syria?
Let's see you. Come on in. Come on in. We're going to go into my office. If you're going to get something done, you have to keep trying to work at it. And, Ronald Reagan sat down with Gorbachev. Nixon sat down with Mao Zedong and went to China, and people in his own party vilified him for, diverting from the orthodoxy, but it made the difference. And we've learned through history, you can not only avoid war, you can actually make peace.
In Washington, there's a kind of default that we've been trying to break, which is that the way in which we demonstrate that we're serious about a problem is by using military force. But the way in which we establish our own credibility on an issue is by demonstrating that we're willing to use military force.
There are no American combat forces in Laos. We do have aerial reconnaissance. We do have perhaps some other activities. I won't discuss those other activities at this time.
It was a secret war. Over 9 years, from 1964 to 1973, the United States dropped more than 2 million tons of bombs here in Laos. More than we dropped on Germany and Japan combined during all of World War II. It made Laos per person the most heavily bombed country in history. Many of the bombs that were dropped were never exploded. Over the years, thousands of Laotians have been killed or injured. Farmers tending their fields, children playing.
How many victims do you still see every year, do you think?
Last year we have 50, so it seems like
It's coming down. Hopefully.
coming down every year.
And if we
Yeah.
can get rid of these.
Yeah, because of the support from the U.S. government and different governments. So
You know, here we are, and there's still people who are being killed and maimed by bombs that we dropped decades ago. You know, if we cannot think that through before we get involved militarily, then we shouldn't.
I want to go develop my career, but yeah, I have to with me. Like, how do you fight? Like, who takes the leading role?
Well, I think that you got to switch off, right? So there are times where Michelle's sacrificed for me, and times
when have
where
you sacrificed for her?
right after I finish this.
Okay, that's awesome.
From here on out, she gets to do whatever she wants.
Okay.
All right, we ready? It's great to see you.
This is a book on America's national parks, which are our effort to preserve our nature. We agreed to a really important set of priorities for the United States to partner with Cameroon in defeating Boko Haram in the long term.
That was incredible. A speech, impromptu remarks, after 3 bilaterals, one of which was with the head of state.
All right,
Listen,
that's good.
Bruce Wharton and
So
I together
do I get a beer
said,
on, a beer on
you
the
get a
plane?
beer, you get a beer on the plane.
The public stuff, you just don't want to make a mistake
Yeah, right.
and make your job harder because you're the ones pursuing implementation, but
You're out there making sure that American foreign policy is based on values.
I reject that.
You do. I want to hear that.
What you do is you set yourself up for a conversation that says there's values and then there's interests like security. And so I'll hear, in meetings with DOD, I agree with Ambassador Power from a values standpoint. But we live in the real world.
But we live in the real world, yeah.
And I'm like, I live in the real world, man.
Exactly.
Like, this is a terrorism problem. It's not a values problem alone.
Correct.
The U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Samantha Power, is visiting Boko Haram victims.
It's called the extreme north, and one politician described it as a region of extremes. And so it has been hard hit by the Boko Haram insurgency.
Well, there has been a long-standing debate in the history of American foreign policy between the so-called realists who believe that states pursue their power and their self-interest. And then there's another camp who have long argued that people need to be at the center of our foreign policy thinking, both because they're people and they deserve respect and dignity, but also because that advances our national security. Was Boko Haram chasing you?
Oh gosh. They took her husband and her children.
Oh, God. So sorry.
Vous voulez?
Don't cry.
No.
You can cry. It's okay. It's okay. We all cry. We all should cry.
Si vous voulez qu'on arrête, on arrête. Vous n'êtes pas obligé de faire ça.
Maybe just tell her we'll do everything in our power to try to help her.
Elle vous dit que vraiment, elle est là aussi pour faire tout ce qui est possible.
It was a dark, devastating day. Really devastating.
Vehicle 7, this is Vehicle 4. Just be advised, they sent an ambulance to the scene. I've already spoken with them. There's an ambulance right now there.
Joining us now is NPR's Michelle Kellerman. She's traveling with the ambassador.
A small boy, he was 7 years old, ran in front of one of the cars in the convoy. Apparently he was going to look up at one of the helicopters that was overhead and just ran into the street, and one of the cars hit him. Unfortunately, he died. And at the end of the day, Ambassador Power ended up stopping by to visit the parents to express her personal condolences.
The father, you know, they have that strength that I can't even imagine as a parent. But this beautiful boy was playing this time yesterday, and now he's gone. So that's, you know, of course you think about your family. My son is going to be 7 on Sunday.
Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
An airplane.
Yeah, up in the sky.
A bus.
So Ben, you'll start. I think it makes sense for you to sort of start and walk through the schedule.
I'll get the Putin question and everything, but
right,
I'll deal with that.
Right. Okay. Anything else? What have we forgotten?
You'll get a. There's the only thing we didn't do for that is like China in the context of our election. You know, there's got to be some question about Trump and China and you know the optics of China. And,
It could also be Trump and Paris Agreement.
That's an easy one to do.
Yeah, well, we've got our case to make about why that's unilateral withdrawal is not
complete isolation of the United States and condemning our children to a future. Yeah.
Okay, you got the door behind us? Okay. All right. All right. Good afternoon, everybody.
Today, President Obama received an extraordinary letter from Syria, a plea for help from 15 of the last remaining doctors in Aleppo.
It has been an act of real delinquence on our part to stay away from this conflict, which is rippling across the world now.
There appears to be dissent in the White House over the handling
Pressure mounting
of
for
the
President
crisis.
Obama to step up military action against Syria.
Is the president feeling like he needs to once again lay out a pretty detailed defense for not using more military intervention in Syria?
The president has been more than willing to use military force against threats to the United States. If you actually look at his record, he's been much more aggressive about going after terrorists and terrorist networks wherever they are than any other president. In Syria, at no time has there been a clear plan that could make the situation demonstrably better.
Despite Vietnam, I'm not a pacifist. I'm not a pacifist even after that experience. I do think that the United States of America has to be able to reinforce our diplomacy with use of force. And there were debates about that.
There's no issue that we've worked on where there was such a divergence among people who on some issues might be aligned, but on this just saw it very differently.
Samantha and I, we have split in some important ways. You know, she sustains that kind of original idealism around our ability to save lives and make things better. I sit close to the president, and when you're president, you know, he has to think about what is Congress going to do about this? How is this going to be received by the American people? How am I going to measure this against every other priority I have in the world?
Certainly what's happening in Syria is beyond frustrating. It's haunting. There's no issue where my thoughts and my feelings and my ideas have made such a marginal impact on desperate people.
The regime of Bashar al-Assad, Russia, Iran, and their affiliated militia are the ones responsible for what the UN called a complete meltdown of humanity.
Of course, I asked myself, had I made an argument differently, I think we could have tried other things, but there's a whole drama there, so.
She'll put her point of view out there as tough as anybody else, but we joke and we commiserate at times when we both were in the same place and didn't get what we wanted. I mean, sometimes we have some tough arguments in this business.
You don't want a groupthink around a table that serious, right? That would be dangerous, in my opinion. Everybody is heard, and then out of our structured decision-making come recommendations that we can present to the president, whether unanimously or with a split.
National security debates, when we make big decisions about war and peace, we've got to be able to build coalitions and get others involved.
I had been for military intervention in Syria. I argued for it in this situation. And the president explained his thinking to us. I could see exactly what he's talking about. Because basically what he said is, look, you don't have international support, you don't have congressional support, you don't have any of the things that allow a military intervention to succeed. And he's like, that's a hell of a way to start a war.
I like about America the fact that we want to do something and not just stand there. But even when we're on the right side of issues, we have to understand that war always has a tragic toll. Not just on the countries with which we may be at war, but also on our troops, on our veterans, on their families. I will become the first president of the United States to serve 2 full terms during a time of war. I have met our wounded warriors, and I've grieved with Gold Star families. Let me say that our nation owes you an unbelievable debt of gratitude.
What perhaps is not on display, except to those of us who are privileged to have worked with him for so long and so closely, is just he carries around the human consequences of his decision-making, the toll that it takes on just a narrow slice of our society when we go and fight these wars. I mean, his heart is breaking for the people in Aleppo right now. And his heart has broken every time he's had to call a family of an American soldier who's been killed or injured in battle.
If we had gone full bore into Syria, we wouldn't be sitting here with a climate agreement. We'd have no Iran agreement. We'd have no, I don't think we would have had the time to do Cuba. Like, that's all we would be doing. And this is what, what's striking to me. I mean, it's like Iraq didn't happen because we spent $1 trillion in a country and have 150,000 troops there for 8 years, and we didn't fix that country. Why would it be different in Syria?
I genuinely believe that if I could have ordered a limited military operation that would have stopped the bloodshed, it would have been worth the sacrifice. The problem is that the lesson we learned from Iraq and Afghanistan is that in the absence of our willingness to govern these areas, oftentimes our intervention doesn't solve the problem and in fact can make it worse.
Save your hand-wringing, Obama administration officials. Just say
that he has consistently painted himself into a corner, and the options are pretty limited.
As a consequence of the West not having done anything,
it has actually led to the festering of extremism,
the reemergence of Russia,
the size of the refugee problem.
I think the president's been a foreign policy disaster.
To get more on at some point is Trump's erratic position on immigration. It seems to keep changing.
He is? Oh, that's great. Nice. Germans imagine? Yes. He was named honorary captain of the German national team today. Only the 5th German to be accorded that honor.
When I am really stressed and pressed on a deadline, I try to find some space where I can get away from everything. It's fairly Spartan, but it does the trick. I'm working on the UN General Assembly speech. I think he sees it as a kind of farewell address to the world. So it's more thematic about the moment in history that we're in.
Just finally, are you at all getting anxious with these poll numbers coming out, showing Trump's numbers vastly up, that everything that you guys have been working on is in jeopardy?
I've never really considered that he has any opportunity to win the election. I've just been operating under the assumption that she was going to win. So if I did think about it, I would freak out. But I'm not there yet. Yeah. All right, let's go. Yep. Oh, sorry.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Barack Obama, President of the United States of America.
He arrives at the UN at a time when you've got this on-again, off-again ceasefire in Syria. You've got an election. You have a terror attack in New York and New Jersey over the weekend while the president was here.
As I address this hall as president for the final time, let me recount the progress that we've made a quarter century after the end of the Cold War. The world is by many measures less violent and more prosperous than ever before. And yet our societies are filled with uncertainty and unease and strife.
You know, I had this huge fight with Samantha last night. You can ask her about it, but I think she thought it was, well, I don't want to speak for her, but she was concerned, is it too optimistic?
It wasn't just me and Ben who were fighting. Obama was in the argument as well. So he's kind of the most important person in the discussion. But our perspectives are just fundamentally different perspectives. The president and Ben, you know, want to affirm just how peaceful our cities have become, relatively speaking.
Indeed, our international order has been so successful that we take it as a given that great powers no longer fight world wars, that the end of the Cold War lifted the shadow of nuclear Armageddon.
My world is a world where you have 65 million displaced, Yemen and Syria and Iraq, Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, Central African Republic, Burundi, South Sudan, Darfur, you know, the list, Afghanistan, of course, Venezuela imploding.
We basically end up having a long debate about how bad this moment is.
There are concerns about terrorism, and there is a fear of the other, and where all the trend lines on democracy, right now at least, are going in the wrong direction.
Whereas the president's saying, for all these problems, like, this is actually the best time to be alive in human history, you know. I think she felt that that was potentially discordant with the mood.
Thank you very much. As heartbreaking as events are around the world today, the truth is that the levels of conflict and violence that we're experiencing so far in the 21st century pale in comparison to what we saw in the 20th. The question is, can we sustain that trend line?
You know, the world won't necessarily see it, but in this week of intensified diplomacy, we have done a lot.
The UN General Assembly is, the Secretary sometimes jokingly refers to it as diplomatic speed dating. I think he did more than 70 meetings last year on an extremely wide range of topics. You take advantage of the fact that everybody's in one place, and you can get a lot of business done that would take you maybe months, if not years, absent that opportunity.
Today, the United States and Russia are announcing a plan which we hope has the ability to provide a turning point, a moment of change.
In order for that deal to come into effect, we need to see 7 days of relative calm, and ultimately it's incumbent on Russia to deliver the Syrian regime.
I'm here today, I called this summit to assist the world's displaced people and refugees.
65 million displaced people, more than at any time since World War II, stands out as the sort of iconic example of the international system not delivering. So he's decided to try to use his last General Assembly to mobilize commitments.
Today's commitment means that we're going to be creating employment opportunities for more than 220,000 refugees.
There's been no end to the opportunities to probe and push and cajole. In Colombia, we helped sign a peace treaty that brings to end the longest conflict in the hemisphere. We were able to get over the threshold of 55 nations signing up for the Global Climate Change Agreement of Paris.
Now, we got a pacifier that fell and could pose a danger to the president. There you go.
We had bilateral meetings today with the Prime Minister of Iraq, which is very positive, and also the Premier of China.
We had a trilateral with Japan and worked through North Korea, the nuclear testing. Over the weekend, I read a story that referred to the U.S.-Russia plan as, quote, flawed and full of caveats. Flawed compared to what? Compared to nothing?
He's completely undeterrable. He knows his odds in Syria, but his answer is, oh, so the alternative is to just walk away when, you know, this number of lives is at stake? I've got to try. I've got to see what we can do here and use the time we have.
Let's figure out how we make something better. And I said, you guys have to think about grounding us at tomorrow. Just, that's it. And then after a few days, maybe we can think about opening a jig. You know, you can't make this thing out of nothing.
American warplanes bombed the Syrian army by mistake.
Mr. Secretary, the Syrian military is saying the 7-day ceasefire is over.
It'd be good if they didn't talk first to the press, but if they talked to the people who are actually negotiating this. It's just so frustrating because we really had an agreement that could have worked. And unfortunately, we have some people who didn't want to cooperate. It's like so much in diplomacy. If a country wants to do something, you know, you just can't sometimes get them to shift gears. And so when our guys accidentally hit 70 soldiers and the other guys didn't believe it was accidental, and then on Sunday, the Assad regime attacked a humanitarian convoy and boom.
In a brutal war, a new low. The food for 78,000 people targeted. Russia says it didn't do it, nor did Syrian aircraft. It blames rebel fire.
What have we said publicly?
So what we said last night in the background, and I think what we're prepared to say now is that whether it was the regime or the Russians are responsible. And it's absolutely an airstrike, and everyone is comfortable confirming that.
Because it's an airstrike, that only leaves two possibilities anyway. And DOD was very firm that it was not any sort of U.S. operation or coalition operation. And so what are we saying about then the future of the agreement?
So while it's suffered a serious blow, you're still working to advance it, and we're looking for steps from the Russians. Doubts are very high. And the Russians have put out drone footage of the convoy.
And just to make clear to everybody,
they're saying that the opposition must have taken action to strike that convoy that this was.
This is fucking sick, even by their senators. Yeah. There are no consequences for anybody for bombing this convoy, are there? Right. Condemnation of the international community. Yeah. Yeah.
Russians seem to care deeply about that.
Yes. Yes.
And plain common sense.
All of this stuff was painstakingly negotiated by people who really know what they're doing, and so the fact that that convoy ended up getting struck certainly felt like far from an accident.
Many said that it could have been a rocket or an artillery shelling. That was what the initial reports were. Then helicopters or warplanes were mentioned. So I think we need to refrain from emotional reactions. And we insist on a very thorough and impartial investigation of the attack on the humanitarian convoy. Thank you very much.
I listened to my colleague from Russia, and I sort of felt a little bit like they're sort of in a parallel universe here. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts. And as President John Adams once said, facts are stubborn things. Yes, the coalition did hit people on Saturday. We did. A terrible accident. But I got to tell you, people running around with guns on the ground from the air is a very different thing from trucks in a convoy with big UN markings all over them. On Monday, 20 aid workers were killed in an outrageous, sustained, 2-hour attack directed at a fully authorized humanitarian mission near Aleppo, fully authorized. There are only 2 countries that have airplanes that are flying in that particular area, Russia and Syria. Those are facts. The primary question is no longer what do we know? The primary question is collectively, what are we going to do about it?
Well, the Russian Federation doesn't care about atrocities committed against people, maybe would sooner atrocities, didn't have, that their ally weren't perpetrating atrocities, maybe, but certainly wasn't motivated by that. That's not when Putin wakes up in the morning and doesn't think, how can I prevent mass atrocities today? And then became a party to the conflict and was part of carrying out atrocities.
Are you truly incapable of shame? Is there literally nothing that can shame you?
The error that we may have made is Putin doesn't seem to pursue Russia's national interests. He pursues Putin's interests. Russia's national interests are actually not to have a shrinking economy and to be this kind of rogue actor. Their best and brightest are leaving, So I think probably for it, and we figured that out, but I think that did take us, that was the thing that took us, too long in retrospect to separate Putin out from Russia. The irony of the Obama years is going to be that, he was advocating an inclusive global view rooted in common humanity and international order amidst this kind of roiling ocean of growing nationalism and authoritarianism.
Perfect. There she is. I'm gonna put my son's broccoli in the plant.
How are you? Good to see you.
What a night.
What a night, yeah.
What a night,
Anyway,
what a
nice
night.
to see you.
All right, everybody, we're gonna Madeline's not gonna be with us for the whole night, but we may be seeing the first woman president-elected tonight. We have with us the first American woman Secretary of State. Tonight is a seminal American event being lived with the 37 women ambassadors to the UN. There are 193 countries, 37 women. We have invited Gloria Steinem, an icon to women all around the world. Madeleine Albright, one of my predecessors in the job, a hero of mine.
And you have the appropriate pin.
This is great, breaking the glass ceiling.
And look at the only numbers that really matter tonight, and that is the race to 270.
This is much closer than Democrats were saying, and you have to be worried tonight if you're a Democrat.
It's scary, right?
It's scary,
yeah. It's not ideal.
In the Obama election 4 years ago, look, all that blue. Donald Trump has taken them, and he's turned them red tonight.
Did you come in thinking we're good, or did you just know that it was going to be good?
I didn't think it would be this bad.
And here we go. In California is Hillary
55
Clinton.
votes now. Make it look close.
Vast stretches of our country red this evening. We have a call. The state of Florida, the apparent winner, Donald Trump. I need to interrupt with another one. Trump wins Iowa. The projected winner. Donald Trump is being awarded North Carolina. Just came in 15 electoral votes.
They have a very realistic possibility tomorrow of controlling both the House, the Senate, and the White House.
To think of them in control of the Senate, the House, and the presidency.
I mean, it's almost like the Civil War,
Donald Trump did not run to unify the country. No. That was the last thing that he did. The country did not vote to be unified.
Yeah. Look, this is the second of 4 really consequential global elections. This phenomenon is playing out across the whole of the Western democracy.
I just came outside to try to process all this. It's a lot to process. I mean, I can't even. I can't. I mean, I can't. I can't put it into words. I don't know what the words are. I mean, it's,
On a personal level, this is tough. My daughter was at home and went to bed before she knew what the outcome was. And so I had to explain it to her in the morning, and it took her a while to absorb and digest. She thought I was joking at first. It's like, no, I'm not joking.
We are not going to be taking any questions. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
I think we have to be realistic about the nature of the challenges that we face. Our job is to make sure the team coming in has a sense of the stakes, because they don't get higher. You have a responsibility morally to make judgments that are based on facts, not fiction. And I'll do everything in my power to put that kind of evidence in front of them as they come in.
President-elect Donald Trump busy on Twitter, slamming.
you think about the people around the country who are afraid. My assistant who works for me is a Muslim who wears a hijab, and she was crying for days. That's what's immediately on your mind. And then you're thinking about things that we worked on: Cuba, Iran, climate. What is going to happen to those things? And I cannot stress to you enough. There's no backstop here. I mean, I think people assume, well, there's some grown-up somewhere, right, who will make sure he doesn't, screw up too bad or something. There's not. There's no, this is it. Like, you're in the office. You decide whether to take a strike that kills somebody. You decide whether to start a war. Presidents had to make hundreds of those decisions. He will have to make hundreds of those decisions. That will happen every week here, and there's not anybody else who will make those decisions for him. Hey, I think we're wrapping anyway, so.
Okay,
so ladies and gentlemen,
he's the expert. Yassas.
Very good.
Kalispera.
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 There's an R missing here.
There's an R missing.
Kalispera.
Kalispera. Come on. Kalispera. I'll figure that out. All right. Philoxenia.
This is where you intonate philoxenia.
Philoxenia.
Very good.
Philoxenia. Philoxenia.
Philoxenia.
All right, let's do this. As many of you know, this is my final trip overseas as President of the United States. And I was determined on my last trip to come to Greece, partly because I've heard about the legendary hospitality of the Greek people, your philoxenia. But also because I came here with gratitude for all that Greece, this small, great world, has given to humanity through the ages. 25 centuries ago, in the rocky hills of this city, democracy was born. After 8 years of being President of the United States, having traveled around the globe, I still believe the fundamental desire to have control of our lives and our future and our nations, these yearnings are universal. They burn in every human heart. That's why the most important office in any country is not president or prime minister. The most important title is citizen. It's been interesting talking to my staff, my team, many of whom are younger. I just have to remind them, and you notice I've been sticking this in probably all my remarks, history really doesn't follow a straight line. It zigs and zags, but the trend lines ultimately will be in the direction of a less violent, more empathetic, more generous world. And that requires individuals fighting for that future.
There's this generation that seems to be coming up that seems to share a very Obama view of the world in the United States and all these other places. And then there's these retrenchment forces kind of pushing back from the other direction, who've actually gotten their hands on the levers of power now. In a strange way, like, it may just be that this has to happen, that people just have to confront the ugly reality of that. I'm begun to just think about the next thing, and I'm going to keep working for President Obama in his international work. He's 55 years old. I'm 39 years old. And, the pendulum will swing back, and I think we have the template for when that happens.
There is a lot that we have done that we will, how do I put this? We're all exhausted, so tired. We all need to reintroduce ourselves to loved ones who have been incredibly patient with us. But I think any thought that any of us might have had that we could go gently into the night, that thought has been vanquished. So we're in this for the long haul.
I always like visiting these ancient sites, whether it's the pyramid or Petra or the Parthenon, because it gives you perspective. In today's world, we live so much day to day. We're looking at stock numbers and poll numbers and the latest tweet, and it just fills us with distractions, with anxieties, fears. You visit a place like the Parthenon, and you're reminded that we're just part of this long chain, and we do our best with the little link of that chain that is allotted to us.
It's made me rethink kind of how we measure what we got done. You can measure the impact of the Cuba deal, but there are these things that we do that are really important that don't show up on that scorecard. And I'm thinking about these visits, to Vietnam and Hiroshima and Laos, the impact you have on people's lives that the president is speaking to and connecting with and giving resources to. And, because when you meet them, they tell you that they trace back, their decision to start an organization or to start a business or to go into government, to some interaction with the president. So that's what I'm excited to watch. That's a long, long game. I mean, we won't know that for 20 years, but maybe there's a different happy ending.
I think of all the young people who I've met around the world, they are representative of a lifetime of potential that's going to be realized in all kinds of ways we can't even anticipate at this point. Imagine what kinds of amazing revolutions for good they can inspire. The speeches they're going to make, the policies that they're going to implement, the laws they're going to pass.
I feel that we have a great responsibility to take part in our community.
More of an opportunity to play, but you have to study.
That's not the side of foreign policy that attracts attention, but may ultimately be the thing that has the most impact.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Good. Appreciate it. All right. See you guys. You all good? Good. We out of here?
Come together, round people, wherever you roam. And admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. For your time to you is worth saving. Then you better start swimming, or you'll sink like a stone. For the times they are changing. Come writers, critics, prophesied with
This is the job description they had me write for this job in 2009. Yeah.
and keep your eyes wide. The chance will come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheels are still in spin. Yeah, for there's no telling who that it's naming. The losers now, maybe later to win.
You never fail when you try greatly to go out and make things happen.
Come Senator, come Congressman, please heed to the call. Yeah. Don't just stand in the doorway, and don't you block up the hall.
Monday.
For he that gets hurt
Monday.